Hey everyone, Pete from knifeup.com here. Hey, today we're going to be talking about something that I never thought I would actually do a video about. As you can see, I'm sitting here in my backyard fire pit, and the reason that I'm here is because about 2 weeks ago my wife came to me and she said, hey, can you do an article on how to make a fire? And I looked at her kind of like she was from another planet. I'm like, well, what do you mean how to make a fire? I mean, you get some tinder and you get some kindling and you get some fuel and you stick it all together and you light it up and away you go and we're good. And she looked at me kind of like, I never told you this, but I don't know how to make a fire. And I looked at her kind of like, what are you talking about? She said, look, I've seen you make a fire, I don't know how many times before, and I've seen all the ingredients that you use, all the wood shavings and all this really great stuff that just looks like it'll go up in a big pile of smoke and flames. But every time I try to start a fire, it lasts for about 30 seconds and then dies out. So I'm like, okay, all right, I see. So I did a little bit of research and I got a lot of feedback, and it looks like she's not the only one. There's a lot of people that seem to start a fire basically with a torch and a can of gas, and we want to stay away from that. All right, we're all about natural and you know, something a little more genteel than a flaming torch and gasoline. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. I've been building fires all my life. I'm not some sort of super expert on it, but I have had a good deal of experience, and it just kind of comes second nature. I don't even think about it. But there are a lot of you out there who kind of know, but maybe don't totally know how to make an effective fire. So before we get started, just real quick, just so you know, we're talking about different, not so much different types of wood, although that's a factor, but the quality of the wood. There's three terms that you need to be aware of. One is tinder, one is kindling, and one is fuel, or main fuel. So in preparation for this video, I was able to start the process of preparing my wood. The whole process really only took me about 15 or 20 minutes. And what I did, I mean, where you are, you can go find stuff in the bush, you can find whatever is there. So I wouldn't worry too much about what types of woods are around. Whatever you can get at the campsite or in the forest around where you are. Don't worry too much about the details. We have an article on our website. Please do read it, okay? It's way more extensive than this video. This video is just a bit of a summary. And in that article, it talks about the qualities of the different types of woods, hardwoods, softwoods, what you should use where and when. But for just to summarize, don't worry too much about it if you're on a campsite, campground. You're not finessing your wood. You're just using what you have. Okay? It's more important how you prepare the wood. So I could get newspaper and all kinds of, you know, other things, paraffin and wax and fire starters and all these things. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to use a match, and I'm going to use basically a log of wood like this. It's not very big, okay? I started with one of these, all right? So here's a shot of me hacking away at the wood and making it ready to prepare the tinder and the kindling, and then a few chunks of fuel, which are the bigger chunks. So you can even buy tinder or kindling at various campsites, I think, but it was easy enough to make this. And then you can shave the wood with kind of any old knife will do. You can use your hatchet or an axe. I'm using an outdoor kind of camp knife from Ontario Knife Company. It's called the Camp Knife. It looks like a kitchen knife, but it's meant for a campsite. So yeah, I prepared the shavings. That's the kindle or the tinder. That's going to go right next to the fire itself, and then next to that we've got slightly heavier wood than shavings, and that would be your tinder. And then you've got kindling, which is this stuff. Okay, a little bit. This is what I'll make my sort of teepee over the fire with. And then we've got bigger chunks of wood, which will be the main fuel. All right, so that's essentially what we're talking about. What we're going to do in a second, we're going to actually start to make it right here in the fire pit. And there's different structures you can use. You can use like a pyramid structure or like a tent teepee. You can use like a log cabin structure, which is sort of built up on 4 sides. There's different things you can use, but what you want to do is get the flames next to the tinder, and then the tinder is going to ignite the kindling. So I've got 2 different types of tinder here. Some of the tinder is really, really fine, and the other stuff is just a little bit bigger. But essentially, those are the three categories: tinder, kindling, and fuel. All right, so let's get started. So I've gone ahead and started making a bit of a base here, and this is just really to hold my tinder, which is really kind of flimsy and small, and I think that should pretty much do the trick. I'm getting pretty fancy here. You don't have to do this, obviously, in a real scenario, real world scenario. No need. By the way, guys, I just want to show you something that's really amazing here. I'm gonna show you how well birch bark burns. Some of you may know this, but it's got like a resin in it that burns really well. I'm gonna now, you know what, I'll do that in a second. Here, I'm gonna start this, and you'll see just how that took a while. Okay, I'm gonna just leave it here. I don't want that to burn, actually. That, I don't know why, it's got a little black smoke coming from it. That's not normal, but anyway, it burns really, really well. And even when it is, when it's wet, it burns really, really well. And that, by the way, that alone probably could have started this whole thing. But I'm just gonna let that burn out just to kind of give you an idea of the quality of birch bark. Okay, I'm going to continue. I'm going to actually, I do have some birch bark here. I'm just going to sprinkle it a little bit over this. This is probably a overkill in terms of kindling and tinder and all that stuff. In a real world scenario, you probably won't find or have the time, the energy to do all this stuff in great detail, but this is just crazy. This dry wood we've got, by the way, we have a combination of like white ash, which is like a soft hardwood, and then we've got some pine and birch as well, and I think there's even a piece of cherry in here somewhere. Again, don't worry too much about the details of that. Let's just focus on how we prepare it, shaving the wood and splitting it properly, and then layering it properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put so this is now the bit of a sort of a big kindling, sorry, a big tinder or a small kindling. That's what we got going on here. So I could get really fancy and make a beautiful looking teepee and tent and all that kind of stuff, but who really cares? It's all going to take off like crazy anyway. So we'll leave it at that, and then what I'm going to do, I can do this later, but just because I'm here now, I am going to put a couple of bigger pieces of this. This is the kindling now. And again, when it comes to, yeah, exactly, it's all going to fall apart. When it comes to kindling and tinder and all that stuff, there's a whole bunch of cross between the two. You look at it and go, oh, that's too big for tinder, and it's too small to be kindling. Well, who cares? It's all just wood that's going to burn like crazy. Okay, so what we have here, we've got the teepee ready to go, and we're going to use one match. That's it. All right, so here we go. Now, took me 3 strikes, but hey. Okay, I just lit it in one place. And a little bit of birch bark over here. I'll toss it in there. And we'll just see what happens. It's looking promising at the moment. Don't really need to add anything, but I will right over where the main flame is, sort of on my side. You can't see it as well from the camera angle. And at this point, the birch bark is playing a good role in this whole fire. By the way, regarding birch bark, I forgot to mention, don't go around looking for birch barks and hacking off their bark. If you find a birch tree, you probably will find some bark just on the ground around it or virtually ready to fall off. That's okay if you take a bit. Just don't take your knife or your axe and start hacking into it. I'm not a tree hugger or anything like that, but I do like to preserve nature as much as possible and not destroy it unnecessarily. Okay, so as you can see, we've got quite a good fire going. At this point, I will just throw a few pieces of kindling now. We're past the tinder. I got lots of tinder, made way more than I needed, and it still only took about 15 minutes for the total prep time. So hopefully if you're on vacation somewhere, timing isn't really going to be a huge factor. I know that when I go camping, timing or the process of building a campfire is actually kind of one of the highlights of the day. So time is not a problem. We take whatever time we need, but really it only took about 10 to 15 minutes to prepare everything, really from one chunk of wood, which I showed you earlier. All right, so the fire is roaring here. At this point, we've kind of started it successfully. And as far as the formula at this point goes, you kind of just got to feel it out. You can apply a bit of strategy here at this point. You can use like a wetter wood, an unseasoned wood, something that's just been cut for a longer burn, or if you want the fire to roar quicker, you can have a very dry seasoned piece of wood, and you can kind of go from there. But anyway, that's the scope of this video, and I appreciate you guys stopping by. If this kind of stuff is useful to you, you know, you can be nice to me and subscribe to our channel below, and we'll look forward to making our next video very soon. By the way, guys, if you haven't got your free gift for signing up for our monthly newsletter, do that. You'll see it when you exit the site, knifeup.com. You'll see a little pop-up. Sorry, I don't use pop-ups much, but I do just in this one case, just because it is a really good deal. And plus, you can stay in touch, or we can stay in touch with you, and you can find out what's going on a bi-weekly or monthly basis, depending on how many things that we put out, newsletters and videos. All right, thanks again for stopping by, and I'll look forward to our next video and talking to you. Take care, guys. And the kindling, sorry, the tinder, okay, sorry. In preparation for this video, I was able to start the process of creating my to prepare the tinder and the essentially what you want is to get the flame next to the tinder, and then the tinder ignites the sorry. Look at that. Dipped it right into water. It's soaked. This is a match from Coughlin's. Never knew how to pronounce that. Yeah, that's what I thought. Bit of a challenge. Okay, forget that. Oh.